I'll cut the first bit out, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Mark Aldridge, and
I'm Dave Cook.
we're running for the upper house, so we thought we'd do an impromptu video telling you a bit about ourselves. I'm the noisy, loud one, and this gentleman gets all the work done in the background, if I could say that. My experience is 15 years in the political arena as a civil rights activist and lobbyist. I'm heavily involved in animal welfare and a variety of different issues that I've covered in the last 15 years. My business is cars, so I'm a motoring enthusiast. I build hot rods, street machines and custom bikes for a hobby and for a business. Dave?
I've had a career of 35 years in local government, and I'm very heavily involved in the Scouting Association. I believe that the addressing the kids now, because they're going to be our future, is very important to me. And I'm in hand with a lot of issues that Mark is very passionate about, so that's why I think we make a good team.
My background is in about 99. I ran for the Senate with my wife Helen. We could see a lot of shortfalls in small business and the way we were being used as a cash cow by the government. I had particular concerns about community safety at the time, and that's what got me into the political arena. Since then I've run probably about 5 times or 6 times, so I'm a serial candidate, as the media will tell you. Several of those times is more about getting a voice. Disability services and funding is particularly bad in this state. I think the most vulnerable and our pensioners and our veterans have missed out for a long time, and over the last 15 years I've met with most groups across the country to learn what they need and understand what their problems are, and have the resources to call upon them to support me if I was ever elected in Legislative Council. In the last 3 or 4 years, and this is where Dave and I met, I decided that, putting all this time into elections as an independent with limited resources is not always successful, so we decided to lead by example. So excuse me, we've been heavily involved in trying to reform animal welfare industry and supporting non-kill shelter and non-kill status. We've been particularly hard working in the realm of supporting our farmers and growers and local producers, and so that's seen me work with water issues, exposés on Today Tonight exposing water theft, looking at underground services, which we don't really look at, right through to holding rallies against Woolies and Coles and the big duopoly having such control over our farmers and wiping them out in favour of the cheapest imported produce they can find. And then Dave and I started working quite closely on farm direct markets, and they're a community-based or suburban located markets, so that the farmers can come and sell their produce direct for a fair price, and so the community can buy fresh, healthy produce at a good price. So it addresses the cost of living increases, which we're ever so catching up on.
When I first met Mark, he was the independent. Yes, he is the big loudmouth, but what he speaks is through pure passion, and that's why I was fortunate enough to be Mark's campaign manager in the last state election and also the federal election. And with the farmers market, the biggest thing that I enjoy on a Saturday is where people are actually buying produce from the stands, and they're actually eating that produce while they're going to visit the other stands. And the amount of kids that you see eating anything from nectarines to cucumbers, they're just buying it straight off the stand, straight in their mouths, enjoying themselves, where when you go to the Woolworths or Coles, your veggies can't be guaranteed. Like 3 or 4 days after you get them in the fridge, you've got to throw them away because they're rotten. But we have people ranging from Crystalbrook that are regular shoppers once every 2 weeks. They only need to come down every 2 weeks because they say that their fruit and veggies that they buy at our farm fresh markets actually last that long, and they're unrefrigerated.
Yeah, these are all important issues. We live in a country where our political mediocrity is killing our farmers. It's allowing the prime production land across Australia to be sold to foreign investment. Those countries are smart. They want to buy our land because it's the best. They know that we have the best soil, we have good soil, we've looked after our country, and previous farmers have done such a good job. They're over here now buying up, and that's to feed their nations. We will have no food security left if we don't do something about it. The last thing you want is a situation where Australia has already become and will become even more indebted to imported product. That means that we can't feed ourselves. Should the time come when a foreign nation or United Nations want to put sanctions on us, we will run out of food and we'll be in desperate state. Australia can feed itself. We can do a damn good job of it, but what we need to do is support our farmers and producers, which is not happening. It's not happening at a water level, it's not happening at a legislative level. We've got the National Resource Management, which is a corporate entity empowered by the government, running around with these university-taught children, trying to tell our farmers how to farm their land. And we have the best farmers in the world. So we really do have too much red tape, too much cost. The cost of water's too high, and we're now pricing ourselves out of the market. The wine growers up in the Riverland, or wine grape growers, are about to go broke. They're being offered less of the production of their product. Most of them will walk off the land, or they'll be selling their own assets and water to stay afloat. This can't keep happening. The only way you can stop that is consider voting for people like ourselves that aren't interested in corporate money. We're not interested in people funding us. We're self-funded. Our only interest is doing the right thing by our country, by our state, by our nation, and particularly by our children so they can eat good food. And that's where we go into rights as well, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
Civil rights, we don't have it. We have no legislative civil rights. We have no Bill of Rights in Australia. People don't know what their rights are. Quite often, Dave or I intervene in issues where people are having problems with authorities, and we turn up and find that these authorities are making it up as they go. The only way we can overcome that is to understand what our rights and liberties are, to concrete and to refine those rights in a Bill of Rights for all Australians. The only people that will not allow that to happen is your political parties and your judiciary, simply because they like to maintain power and be able to write any regulations or legislative amendments that they like. We need to rein that in, and we need to stop that, and the only way we can do that is by working together. The upper house in South Australia, where Dave and I are running, the idea is that we do look at legislation and we look at amending that and reading through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that any laws or new laws that are passed, that there are three checks and balances. One is that those laws are in the best interest of the community that we wish to serve, that they are fair and just is very important, and that those rules only have your best interest in mind.
A Bill of Rights has got to be written for the people, by the people. Now, Mark here has actually drafted up a draft Bill of Rights which can be used as a base document for it to go out to the people, see if it's what they want. It's not if they want it, it's what they need. So it's a good starting point. So Mark hasn't written a Bill of Rights that everyone should accept. He's done the base document that can be used for the consultation purpose so that the Bill of Rights can be by the people and for the people.
You know, there's so many issues that are important, and look, one of them would be your voting rights. I mean, first of all, most people watching this, and a lot of people out there, don't know how to vote. They don't understand that there's a lower house and an upper house. The lower house is that small ballot paper where there'll be 5 or 6 candidates running for your area. We are running for the upper house. The upper house is that big, huge ballot paper with lots of names on there. Very confusing. You won't know who they are, and you're not meant to. That's the truth. You have to preference in this state every single player, even if you don't want to, even if you don't know who they are, even if you don't like their views. That is not democracy in its true sense, and those are the things that I've been standing up against for years. You deserve the right to know who's running, and you deserve the freedom of choice of optional preferential voting. Dave and I have just been through the most horrific process, trying to deal with all the different candidates and work out where a vote for us will go if we're not successful. And Dave can tell you, what was your thoughts on it?
I'm very actually dismayed and actually quite annoyed at the fact of how this system's done. And I actually plan to do a separate YouTube video exactly what it feels like for a first-time candidate. People get to see, the backyard deals. Well, it's not backyard deals. Like, there's no deals done because promises are done on a gentleman's handshake, and the day after, the big big players, the Labor, the Liberals, the Greens, the Nick Xenophon X-Team, ring up the smaller players with promises of monetary gains or that they'll get preferences, and all of a sudden those gentlemen's handshakes don't hold the honour that what our forefathers died for.
It's interesting. I've been involved in electoral reform for about 15 years. One of the reasons I run in elections is that I think that your right to a free and informed vote is important. The one thing you're not meant to know about is people like us, that's for certain. We can't get the general media coverage. They are pretty much empowered by the two leaders of the political parties. And there's lots of other issues that go on. I mean, people quite often turn up to vote and they really haven't thought it out at all. They arrive in there, they don't know where to vote, how to vote. Thousands and tens of thousands of votes are invalid each year. Very important votes. The amount of votes that have been invalid each year for the last 3 or 4 elections have outnumbered the winning margins of the major parties. So the people out there that aren't voting could actually turn the tide. The other issues that we have seen personally over the years is dodgy practices by the major parties. One would think, and instead of talking about all the problems, let's look at what we could be doing. We receive a guide in the mail or in the letterbox. We open it up, it's got a list of the candidates, some brief information about them. They have a sample ballot paper there. Let's say there's 20 candidates and you like 4 of those, so you number 1 to 4. You take that with you to the polling booth. You show some ID so that people know there's no multiple voting going on. After you've shown that ID, you receive a ballot paper. You fill that in with your free will. For the candidates you do and don't like, you can leave the ones you don't like or don't know off, and you preference only those you do like. That is then taken and put into a steel locked box, not a cardboard box. And those are, the security on those seals aren't tampered with, and when they're opened and counted, they have video surveillance to show that that has been done in a just and informed manner. Now, that seems very simple. I explained that in less than 60 seconds. That is honest, open and fair democracy. Now, we don't have that here. We have ballot papers going missing. 26,000, I think it was, at the last state election. 16,500 ballot papers simply went missing. 6,500 or 7,000 ballot papers were deemed invalid because of dodgy applications for them. We had missing names off the electoral roll, totalling over 77,000 names. That's people that had voted all their life, have every right under our constitution to vote, but were denied that right. There were several other practices that we won't go into the whole lot, but I mean, the Labor Party in South Australia dressed up as another political party and tried to actually deceive voters. They intercepted mail of voters by registering reply paid addresses. So when you go to your letterbox and there's a how to vote application sheet in there, and you fill that in for a ballot paper or something like that, and you send it off, just because it said reply paid and it says the Electoral Commissioner doesn't mean it's going there. These people are intercepting your information and your votes and having a hand in the way in which elections are run. In fact, the Labor and Liberal Party get together each year and change electoral law. And they do that because people like us, as small as we may be, are starting to get more support. So this year they made it ridiculous, didn't they? What was it?
250 votes, 250 nomination signatures each.
Each, yeah.
$3,000. And if you didn't stand as a group like Mark and I are doing, standing together, you don't get your name on the ballot paper and you don't get the chance of going into the preference votes. And a lot of the smaller independents that have run in previous years haven't been able to actually get the signatures. So the ballot paper this year, instead of having, I think the last one was 73 candidates on there, it's a lot smaller this time because some of the major parties just couldn't actually get the nomination signatures.
Well, look, it used to cost me $450, and I've always thought democracy should be affordable. It's cost me $6,000 to run in this election. To do some posters cost a few $1,000s. We're definitely not favoured by the media.
No.
Because we get up our butts and get stuff done. So if there's a problem with a local council and sorry Dave, with a local council or something like that, we'll intervene. If an animal shelter is having problems with the RSPCA and we don't think that's fair or just, we turn up and make sure that whatever goes on there is done in a just and fair manner. We have open farm direct markets to make sure you can buy your produce straight from the farmers and that every cent you spend ends up in the back pocket. we've run campaigns calling for people to buy Australian, making sure you put your money in the right pockets is the campaign name which ran last year. So we really do care about the community. We're out there each day doing something and helping. Myself and my wife run an native animal shelter, or sanctuary as we call it, and Dave's been helping for years with that. And if somebody rings us up and they have any sort of problem, whether it's a minor issue or dealing with a government department, and we'll go for a drive and see if we can assist. And we've done that because we'd like to lead by example. We want you, if you vote for us, to know exactly what the hell you're getting. And you can check that online. You can check Google, you can punch in a topic that might be pertinent to you and punch my name in and have a look at what we've been doing. And so we're not just popping up at elections like most of the candidates. We're out there every day trying to make a difference. And we believe, if voted into the upper house, that we can be your checks and balances, that we can make sure that everything that goes on in this state is open and accountable. If we see something going on that's not right and the media aren't going to report that to you for any reason, we will have the resources, being a members of parliament, to send out information to you direct to your mailbox if we have to make sure that you're aware of what's going on and find out from you what you'd like us to do for you, and that's what we'll be doing. And for you, I like that because we're in box U. Box U on the ballot paper, so I better throw in the quick plug.
Yep.
That we're here to represent you, and that doesn't mean box you, but you people out there. That's my humour for the day. What other topics should we cover in this short video?
We're very, as you can see, Mark and I are both very much animal lovers. Mark emceed the Shark Cull rally down at Glenelg a few weeks ago, which was a great turnout. Anything to do with animals, live export, shark culling. We love to promote no-kill shelters.
Yeah.
And we'd like to see the RSPCA actually brought to bear concerning their practices on the way that they treat. We've had problems with the RSPCA. I mean, I was a big supporter and donated to the RSPCA, and going back a few years ago when the floods were in Queensland, I jumped in the truck and headed over there. I took about 6 tonne of food and several $1,000s that I raised. And so I've always been a big supporter of the RSPCA, but in recent times we've seen them overzealous with their prosecutions. The RSPCA have a kill procedure. Dave and I don't agree with that. It's up to you people to express your distaste for the fact that they kill up to 70% of their animals. But we have had to step in a few times where the smaller non-kill shelters that take a different approach and value to life are being undermined or attacked by the RSPCA because the RSPCA thinks that keeping animals for long term is wrong. Now, my opinion is simple. Any person out there, including you listening, want to rescue an animal and invest money into rescuing that animal and give it a good life, even if it only has a year left or a few months left. That's your prerogative. And those are the sorts of things that we do our best to intervene in and try and bring community expectations to these departments, which tend to start off with all good intentions. But then, of course, as they grow, it becomes about the money. And we can't have that. Government's about the money. The people they listen to, the Labor Party, for instance, here, the majority votes the union. So the members you're voting for the Labor Party, have to toe the line to what they're told by the unions and by the faceless men that we don't see. Democracy is undermined by that very fact. We would represent you. We're not interested in large corporations coming to us for support. We're the supporters of the small bloke. We're the grassroots politicians, if you'd like to call it that. And whether you vote for us or not, we're still going to be out there helping you. The only thing we can do so much better is with the resources Parliament would make available to us. Having full time. I mean, I have to try and work a job, run my sanctuary, and then head off around the country. I was in Canberra, 3 weeks ago, emceeing a very large rally to demand a Bill of Rights for all Australians. And then the week after, you was in Western Australia on an animal issue.
Yeah, with the animal welfare over there, trying to rescue a lady that's been looking after stray cats for about 20 years, investing a lot of money. She's in a lot of trouble and has run out of money. So I've been over there. So these are the sorts of things that we fund out of our own pockets. Everything we've done in the last 10 years is for you, and we do it out of our own pockets, and that's because we do care. And if you elect us, we'll have more money and more resources to do more. And I think we'd be a great benefit to the upper house here in South Australia. The only alternatives you really do have at this stage is you have Labor and Liberal, and of course their members will go along the party lines, so the scrutiny of your legislation won't be as detailed as what we would perform for you. And some of the smaller players are very good people, and we've met them, haven't we? Some of the smaller parties are excellent, compassionate, caring people, but they jump up around election time and tell you they have good ideas, which they do. They do. And there's a lot of those that if you vote in would do an excellent job for you. I think where we maybe benefit is that I have the extensive experience of reading and understanding legislation and law and constitution and things like that at a reasonable level. But we have been out there. You can go and see what we do with our time, how we invest our own money and time. And so it's not really going to be a frightening experience to give us a chance, because if you go online and you're interested in fresh produce, or you're worried about Woolies and Coles and their control over our industries, punch the name in and punch Mark Aldridge in there and have a look. Judge me on my actions. It's all good to tell you that we'll do everything in the world for you, but wouldn't it be better to choose somebody where you can then see what we've actually been achieving?
And the one thing about an independent is you go ask the major parties how they stand on this or how they stand on that, they won't be able to give you an answer on the spot. Like if you're talking to them on the street, they'd have to go back and see what their party policy will allow them to say. Independents like Mark, myself and other small players, we can speak from the heart, we can give you an answer straight away, exactly how we stand. So I implore you, when you do vote, don't just vote on the name, because you're not voting for the actual person, you're voting for the major party policy. If you go and vote for the independent, particularly like Mark and I, where we've done the hard yards, you'll know what your vote is going towards. But you don't just put it to a party policy, because these major parties, they change leadership so many times. You may vote for Mr. X one day, and then all of a sudden there's a Mrs. Z the following day, and you've still got the same policy. Independents can give you what they say from the heart.
What we can do is we can talk to you and look, I think it was only tonight that I received an email, and I wrote a reply to that email on a particular topic, and I put that up online on social networks, and a lot of people disagreed with my position. In fact, they educated me to change my position. So I wrote back to those people and said that, I've had a thought about this, I've talked to my supporters, and they would prefer that I took this approach. That is what we wish to do. So we don't want to be, we can't offer you policy. We can't say this is our policy. I can tell you, if you say to me, what can we do for farmers? And I can say, look, this is what's happened in the past. I think that free trade is killing our country and our industries. I think we should go back to tariff protections and make sure that imported produce can't, if you've got oranges coming from Canada, the Canadian government are subsidising that, and it's coming over here and wiping out our producers. Our government needs to step in and protect us. It's called protectionism. I've always believed you should vote for people that are going to protect your best interests. But our government now called me names quite regularly that protectionism is a waste of space. Well, I don't think it is. So that may be my position now. If you can explain to me somehow how we are going to benefit from what we call free trade and a supposed level playing field, when people in another country are getting paid $20 a week and we're getting paid $20 an hour. If you can explain how that'll work for us, I may reconsider my position, but right now, our position would be quite comfortably that we don't believe in that. We think free trade's killed the country. We think that free trade has killed industry. You can see our car manufacturing is gone. You can see our primary producing is gone. We're about to use our wineries and our wine grape growers. What will be left for your children? I say to the government, and one approach we take is to step in and start legislating and supporting and making sure we protect what industries we have left, and then try and find a way to grow those industries. The Greens, for instance, want to shut most industries and open up all new green industries. So somehow everything we know that has worked for years and years and years, we'll shut that down and suddenly we'll all have jobs in the green industry. I'm not even sure what that is. We are not anti-environment. We may take a more cautious approach to things like carbon tax, but we're environmentally friendly people. I've revegetated my property. I believe in habitat restoration. I have been leading in the way we try and treat our aquifers and the way we could use our aquifers for mass water storage. I have called out for many, many years for mass power storage to make wind and solar power available to be used for industrial applications rather than be... We can't run on wind power and solar power because the sun disappears every now and then, as we know, and the wind stops blowing. We can't turn on and off our generators, our power generation. It has to be running. So really at the moment everything's about smoke and mirrors, isn't it? It's all nice to have wind farms, but if they're putting too much, you can't turn off the generators. As simple as that. If you could store that power for use when it's needed, then we can start truly embracing renewable energy. But we don't hear those sorts of ideas coming out of any of them. It's all about how they can appear. You know, Labor are for the workers, Liberal are for the businesses, Greens are for the environment. Well, I'm not really sure that's correct. I haven't seen any good environmental innovation in the last few years that you could be bragging about as a nation. You can't brag about the working conditions of the people and the cost of living pressures that we're facing as individual workers. The small business are being wiped out. I mean, we're a cash cow for government. Every time they need money, they chuck new red tape on us guys. And the only people that seem to be doing easy are the big corporations, which are the same ones that fund these major parties. So we have a very big divide between the voters and people like ourselves and our families, and what we perceive as government. And the reason that divide's there is they don't really care about us because they have played games with democracy. What you guys have that are watching this is you have one little vote. Some of you will have that taken from you. Some of you will vote inappropriately. You'll fill in one of the boxes slightly wrong. But if we all try really, really hard to make sure the vote does count and that it counts for the right people that will represent your views, or our views as we call it, in Parliament, then we will see change. And we won't see it in a hurry, but if someone doesn't lead by example, then who else is going to stand up and help us?
What really scares me is if it's foregone that Labor or Liberal are going to get into the lower house. Now, if they have control of the upper house as well, it doesn't matter what bullshit legislation they want to put through. If they've also got control of the upper house, whatever they put forward will get rubber stamped, and us as a nation will have to wear it whether we like it or not. We need checks and balances in the upper house. So I've said it again, I implore you, make sure that your vote counts. And these people that say, I've spoken to a couple of people lately and they say, oh yeah, my vote's going to be for the donkey. If you want to change, you've got to change your attitude. You've got to take time, educate yourself,
Exactly right.
Have an informed vote. And if it goes wrong, at least you can stand up and say, well, I tried. Don't put a donkey vote in, 2 years down the track, complain at whatever government is in place and say, oh, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. If you put a donkey vote in, you bring it upon yourself as to what this government will be able to do to the people of this nation.
You know, the worst part about it, you guys sitting out there, the ones that don't care, and you're probably not watching this video to this length of time by now,
No.
You've probably turned it off, but the fact is, it's not just about you. You know, you're going to pass on one day. The only thing you can leave behind for your children is those rights and liberties that we're asking to fight for. That right to eating fresh, healthy produce that's locally grown. Do you really want to start seeing your children eating byproducts of China, where China are buying our land up, they'll produce top quality product here, they'll send that over to their own country to feed them, and they'll send back their rubbish they don't want anymore? That's unacceptable. Absolutely and totally unacceptable. And our government don't even look at how much land's being sold. You know what was interesting? I managed to put some facts and figures together about 2 years ago for the Northern Territory. And the brag was that, oh, it's okay, the foreign investment in our primary production in land over here is only around 15-16%. But do you really think the Chinese or any of these companies are coming over here from different countries and buying land that's useless? No. So when they talk about 15-16% of the land, that is probably more likely 70 or 80% of the primary production land. Now that is unacceptable, and what makes it worse is they say free trade is a level playing field. Well, they can come here and buy our land, but we can't go there and buy theirs. You tell me how that's a fair and level playing field. Not even a chance. So we need to change how we vote. We need to know that there's a slight chance of heading in a different direction. That's all we can be. We cannot change. We cannot run the state from the upper house. We cannot propose legislation and push it through unless we can convince one of the other parties to support our legislative concerns. What we can do is try and be a beacon of light. Somebody out there different, someone that you've said for years you wanted to see change. Well, we will bring that change. And then hopefully, next state election, more people will run. And I will support them. And hopefully within a few years' time, in a time when you're still around to remember it, that you've helped start the ball rolling to a different style of politics. Politics that protects you, protects your best interests, protects the rights and liberties of your children, make sure you're eating good food, make sure you can afford to turn the power switch on, and make sure you can still afford to have a shower if you feel like it. And those are the sorts of things that we stand for. And I hope you share this video. It's probably now too long. We were going to come in here for a couple of minutes to do something quick. So I think
we're
now
so passionate. This is what happens.
So look, share the video. If you want change, we can offer that change. We're not the only ones. And I'm going to be honest, we met some very good people running for the upper house. I'm not going to sit here and go through all the different names. Some of them made promises and lied and were cheats. Others did a very, very honourable job of making promises and keeping them. If you start off being a cheat at the stage that you're nominating and doing preference deals, then you'll never deserve the title of honourable. And you've got to remember that these people that you're voting in, when you vote for the upper house for Liberal or upper house for Labor, you don't even know who those people are, do you? No, you don't. And they are going to get the title of honourable. But how many politicians do you know, deep in your heart, have actually been honourable? Not many. False promise is unacceptable. If they say they're going to do something, it should be held to account. If you came to me and I offered to do a job for you like paint your car or repair your engine, and I say it's going to be $1,000 and you drop back a few weeks later and say, sorry, that's $5,000 now, but I've buggered up and your car doesn't run anymore, would you just pay me and keep coming back to me? Not a bloody chance. So don't keep voting for people that have lied to you. Don't keep voting for people that are selling your country. And don't keep voting for people that are deceitful and dishonest and don't deserve the title of honourable. I think we've worked hard all our lives and we have done that with honour, and we deserve respect for what we have actually done. So I hope you enjoy this little bit of a video and you maybe share it. But of everything else in the world, make sure that you cast a free and informed vote, and the best one you can. And whether or not you vote for us, guys, we'll still be out there helping in the community. We'll still continue to expand and open farm direct markets and fight for your right to a free vote. And I will still lobby, flying all over the country, for animal welfare reform and for your children to have some sort of refined rights. And Dave will do the same.
Yep. So as a last footnote, don't vote for yourself. Look at your children, look at your grandchildren, and look at the life that you can give them by voting us in. Like, we had a supporter that travelled the country for hundreds of miles getting us nomination signatures, and when he was asked, why are you doing this? He turned around and he says, I'm doing it for my grandkids. If everyone thought that same way, that's the way that we need to be. So don't vote for yourself in mind, vote for your kids and vote for your grandkids.
Bloody oath. Thank you.
Oh, went on a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, we overdid it. We can cut some bits out, hopefully, or no, we can't.